All right, we are back here on the podcast doing our tennis check-in here. The U.S. Open starting today on at Flushing Meadows here. Join me today to get us ready for the fortnight over at Flushing Meadows. Great friend of the podcast, tennis writer Chris Oddo is back with us. Chris, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Mike. I'm really good. How are you?
Pretty good. I got to say, I'm still getting used to the fact that we changed the tournament up a little bit because for years it's been Monday to the first night of football season. Now we're going Sunday to Sunday. So I feel like that's an interesting change. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about why they made this change?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I think the tournaments wanted to capitalize a little more on fan interest. That we saw the French Open do this and have success doing it, stretching out the first round to 3 days, opening it up on Sunday, and I think it allows more people to show up on that opening Sunday. Families with kids and whatnot, not in school. So I think it's, you can call it a money grab, but you can also call it just an extra day for television, for TV. It doesn't really change the tournament that much, and it makes the first round a little bit less frantic because there are so many matches going on with 128 players in the men's and women's singles draw. They're able to spread that first round out over 3 days. It seems to work out pretty well. So I think, it's a change for sure. I mean, it's going to be weird having to get down and start day one tomorrow, but I think in the end, it'll probably make the first round a little bit easier to follow, and maybe it'll help get some more kids out there on that first Sunday rather than the typical Monday crowds at the Open.
Yeah, I think also rain insurance definitely helps there. I think the other big change to the tournament this year is people have definitely noticed on social media was the call to take the mixed doubles tournament out of the second week and bring it to the week before, which is during fan week. And the idea here is, hey, let's get this before the actual main draw for the singles, and we'll get some of the big stars in the tournament. And not perfect because obviously you lost some people from Cincinnati, but I think for the most part, people were buzzing at this on social media, and people were really excited about this mixed doubles format, getting big names back out there. Did you like the change to move the mixed doubles up?
Yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed it, and I think it was pretty much unanimous. I mean, there was a little bit of a protest early on about the way the tournament was thought up because it based its entry on singles rankings rather than doubles rankings. So you have a lot of doubles specialists out there that weren't able to play. And there was a pretty wide protest from the regular doubles players. And of course, moving it to the week before the tournament was really just enabled some of the stars to play so they wouldn't be busy with singles at the time. And, we were all curious about how it would turn out, right? And then once it started, you saw the crowds. I mean, this is 5 days before the main draw begins. You've got Arthur Ashe Stadium packed on consecutive nights. You've got so much interest. You've got top Americans in the mix. You've got Iga Swiatek and Casper Ruud playing. And then, surprisingly, you've got a mixed doubles defending champion who were the Italians, Irani and Vavasori, given a wild card, and they proved that they were better than everybody else and won the tournament. So, I mean, fantastic kind of a fairy tale ending for the doubles specialists, proving that the doubles players are worth their salt. But overall, having all those stars in the mixed doubles and having that elevated prize money, I mean, the champions split $1 million instead of $200,000 last year. I mean, it was pretty remarkable how well it's going, and I think you're going to see the other Grand Slams kind of change their tune on this and maybe follow suit pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a slam dunk. I mean, for example, you got Novak Djokovic and Daniil Medvedev playing mixed doubles you would never see in the old format.
You would never see it anywhere other than the Olympics. This type of star power at a mixed doubles event, and it really just. I think this is one of those moves that. There are some head-scratching moves that tennis has done in the past with scheduling and whatnot, but this one is just a perfect decision by the U.S. Open. It's one of those things you're like, why didn't I think of that myself?
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the sport as a whole, obviously, I've done the best I can to update people on the headlines. I'm not day to day into as much as you are. So for the uninitiated who just shows up to the U.S. Open and says, cool, tennis is back. What did they miss so far this year?
Well, they missed the continued emergence of the rivalry in the men's game between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, we've seen the big three era of Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic pretty much come to an end. Novak Djokovic is 38 years old. He will be in the main draw, and he has been an effective player this year, but he hasn't won any major titles. It's now the land of Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. They have combined to win each of the last 7 Grand Slam titles. They have played the last 2 Grand Slam finals, including one of the most epic Grand Slam finals ever in Paris in June, which was won by Alcaraz. Sinner won in Wimbledon. So that's pretty much the story in the men's game. You have a lot of players who are trying to get to the top and who hope to crash through what they thought might be an open door to win major titles, but it doesn't appear to be as open as they hoped it would be, because Alcaraz and Sinner, who are still very young, might I add, Sinner's 24, Alcaraz is 22, have just taken over the men's game. So the real struggle is, can some of these players, can some of these top Americans, Ben Shelton, Francis Tiafoe, Taylor Fritz, who was a U.S. Open finalist last year, possibly finagle their way in there and win some major titles? It's not going to be easy. And sorry for going on a little bit too long, but then we've got the women's game, which has been interesting. Aryna Sabalenka has taken over as the number one player in the world, but has not been able to win a major title this year. So she really has probably a lot of pressure on her to try and defend her title at the U.S. Open. We've seen Madison Keys of the United States become a surprise Grand Slam winner at the Australian Open. That was a real fairy tale run. And we saw Coco Gauff win her second major title in Paris. And then, surprisingly, believe it or not, Iga Swiatek won her sixth major title and her first at Wimbledon, she really changed the narrative of her season. It now comes into New York as almost a co-favorite with Sabalenka on the women's side at the U.S. Open. So that's a brief rundown. It's been a fun season. It's been a long season, and a lot of other stuff has happened, but that's generally the look at the Grand Slams.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And obviously, you got the draw came out yesterday. Start with the women's side is where we wrapped up this last question here. Like, what's your big takeaway from the women's draw?
I mean, the women's draws, to me, the draws are not really earth-shaking or revealing it too much. I think that Sabalenka might have a tougher draw than Swiatek. Those are the two players I'm really looking at coming into the tournament. How did they work out? And Sabalenka has potential challenges down the road. She could face some players that have beaten her before, including Denmark's Clara Tauson, who's a young rising player, could be a potential round of 16 opponent. Elena Rybakina, who's a former Grand Slam champion and a heavy hitter, is in that side. Jessica Pegula is in that side. There's potential pitfalls for Sabalenka where I see that Swiatek's draw in the lower half looks a little bit easier. Hard to say, though. The U.S. Open can be unpredictable. It's late in the season. A lot of players are carrying a lot of fatigue. So, to me, the draws don't really reveal anything yet. We're going to need to see a couple rounds to see how people are playing and to see who's stepping up as potential dark horse candidates.
Yeah, I feel the same way in the men's draw. You feel like either guy had an easier path, Sinner or Alcaraz?
Again, I feel like with Sinner and Alcaraz, the way they have kind of put themselves head and shoulders above the field, I think it's going to take a real surprise for them to get knocked out. I don't see anything that makes me say that, one guy got a quote bad draw. I mean, there are players that are good and they'll have to get through on either side. It's of note, Alcaraz has Djokovic in his half. That's interesting. It's a potential semifinal. And we must say that Djokovic, even at 38, not playing his best tennis by any means, but still has managed to reach the semifinals of all three majors. So maybe you say that Sinner benefits from not having Djokovic in his side. But yeah, I don't see too much in it. I see a lot of good matchups potentially, but I feel like odds are, and I think odds makers would agree with me, that it's a Sinner Alcaraz final. That's the most likely outcome.
Yeah, I feel like this tournament is an interesting spot for this rivalry, the Alcaraz Sinner stuff here, because obviously they've just taken over in terms of meeting in Grand Slam finals, having these epic showdowns throughout the tournament here. What do you feel like we can learn about the rivalry here if they do meet up again?
It would be incredible if they do meet up again, because there was a match that they played in, I believe, I have to check, but 2021 they played a 5-setter. It was really the arrival of the rivalry. It was a late night match. It was Alcaraz's pretty much first miraculous win where he saved the match point and came back and beat Sinner at 5. And it was this match where I don't think we knew quite what to expect from those two, and they put on this incredible show. Match ended, well after midnight. Many fans stayed around Martha Ashe Stadium. The tennis, and I was in the house that night to watch it live. The tennis was mind blowing, and that's when I personally first realized, wow, these guys are unbelievable players on their own, but when they compete against each other, the way they match up, the skills that they have and have to put on the line to try and nullify the other's games is just remarkable tennis. High speed, quick strike tennis, just athletic movement, and it made you think wow, these guys are as entertaining to watch potentially as the Djokovic Nadal, the Federer Djokovic, the Nadal Federer rivalries. I don't think they're there yet. I think they need more history to pile up. They need more matchups. They've only played 14 times so far and twice in major finals, but that was the message I got. And the follow through in the last few years has been revelatory. These guys are just, it's a fantastic rivalry and people love to see it. Unfortunately, their last matchup at Cincinnati ended in illness and Sinner lost the first 5 games and couldn't continue. So it'd be nice to get that taste out of her mouth and see them play again. But then again, it would be nice to see some upsets as well. I will say that.
Yeah, definitely interesting on that front as well. And I remember that match you talk about here. Like they played 2022, the U.S. Open, like ended 2:50 in the morning, which is I think still the latest match ever ended on Ash like in the U.S. Open.
Thank you for the stats there. Yes, 2022, and Alcaraz went on to win his first of 5 major titles at that event. So yeah, I don't think anybody's forgotten that match at all. That one will go down in the history books.
Yeah, and you mentioned Djokovic, who's in the main draw, and like I think now at the point in his career, like he's still good enough to get deep in these tournaments, but like it's really hard for him to like not only get like all the way in win 7 best of 5s and beat like 2 of the top dogs in like consecutive matches here. Like, do you feel like the ceiling with Novak is basically like, okay, like maybe he gets to the final if he has his best day, he can beat one of them, but will lose to the other if he gets there? Do you think that's where we're at with Novak at this point?
It seems to be that way. It seems to be really tough for him to get through. He really needs to really manage his body and get through some of these matches easily. And honestly, Mike, you talked about looking at the draw. If you look at Novak's draw, it all looks tough. He starts with the American Lerner Tien, who's been somewhat of a giant killer on tour this year, beating, I think, 2 top 5 players and 2 top 10 players. And he could potentially face Alex Mickelson, another young rising American, in the 3rd round. And then after that, there's Holger Rune, or Francis Tiafoe, and I think we all know how well Tiafoe plays in New York. He's a 2-time semifinalist. He's a guy that, if the draw really breaks open, he's a guy who has the magic and could potentially win this tournament. So I feel like it might be tough for Djokovic to get not just to the semis, but to get through the first 4 rounds. And if that's difficult, and if his body's not at 100%, and then he ends up having to face Alcaraz in the semis, like he did it well in Australia. He was able to beat Alcaraz in the quarterfinals, and then he just had nothing left for Sinner in the semis. And I think that's the more likely scenario. But you never know with this guy, even though he's 38. If he gives himself chances to win, and maybe he gets to a semifinal, and maybe either 1 or 2 of Alcaraz and Sinner somehow have been upset. We saw Alcaraz lose in the 2nd round last year. Maybe he does have a shot. You just never know.
Yeah, you never know here, and. Go American men here, because obviously there's a lot of intriguing American men in the draw. You talk about Tiafoe early on here. Taylor Fritz, the 4 seed in this tournament. People don't realize that he would get Djokovic in the quarters if they get that far. Ben Shelton's the 6th seed in that same area of the bracket. Like, there's a lot of like intriguing American men here. Like who you feel is the best chance of the American men to make a deep run?
I really like. It's tough. I want to say Ben Shelton. I think Ben Shelton has done the most in the last few months to actually be looking like the most promising American and the American with the biggest chance to win a Grand Slam. Whenever we talk to John McEnroe, he's always talking about Ben Shelton, by the way. He thinks, we've got Shelton. We think, of course, an American man hasn't won a slam since Roddick at the Open in 2003. So we're still harping on that number. And McEnroe likes to point to Shelton a lot. And really, he's backed it up with a lot of great tennis. He's still a pretty raw player. I would say he still has a lot of things he can develop in his game. But to me, he looks like the best player with the most forward momentum coming into this tournament. I don't like the fact that he's got Alcaraz as a potential quarterfinal matchup, because he just hasn't been able to get past either Alcaraz or Sinner at the slams lately. So that's going to be a hang-up. But then, as you mentioned, Taylor Fritz was just amazing last year, and he's been rock solid as a competitor since then. He's coming in as the 4 seed. He's the number 1 American until someone can prove that he isn't. You also got Tiafoe, who I think is potentially, as I mentioned, if the draw kind of implodes, if there's an opening, the way that Francis has played in New York in the last 3 years, I expect them to get deep. I expect them probably to face up with Djokovic in the round of 16, and I think if he can win that match, it might give him even more momentum. And then Tommy Paul is there, and then there's a lot of other Americans in the top 100 that are worth watching, young players like Tien and Mickelson, who we talked about.
Absolutely. Let's go to the women's side. You mentioned that that you set your top 2 you're watching here, Iga Swiatek and Arina Sabalenka, the top 2 seeds here. Like, do you feel like this is like a them or the field situation with the tournament?
No, I wouldn't say that like I would say it with Alcaraz and Sinner at all. I think you've got Coco Gauff, who's proven herself yet again, winning Roland Garros this year. It's her 2nd major title. feels like she hasn't even played her best tennis in either of those tournaments. So that gives you an idea of like, what if Coco actually locks down her game, gets her serve in order? By the way, she hired a new biomechanics coach by the name of Gavin McMillan to help her with her serve. This is the same guy who helped Sabalenka when she was having problems with double faulting. So, Coco Gauff's in the mix, Jasmine Paolini. I mean, you can go on and on with the women's names. There's Mira Andreeva, the young teenager who's been great at the slams so far, but hasn't really had her big breakthrough. I see it as Madison Keys. We should have talked about her. She's in the midst of her greatest year, won her first major title. Amanda Anisimova, who reached the Wimbledon final, wasn't able to get a game there, but still a player on the rise. So I feel like it's a little bit tougher to say that it's a lock that we'll see a Swiatek and Sabalenka final. There's a lot of good players on the women's side. It's always kind of a little bit more of a toss-up as to who might come out and win the major.
Yeah, you mentioned Coco Gauff here, and now she's the 3C in this tournament here. She's won here before. She's had ups and downs this year. I feel specifically about her chance here. I know we talked about there's a chance that she would get Madison Keys in the quarters here if they get that far. How do you feel about Coco?
Yeah, Madison's a good matchup for Coco. She beat Madison at Roland Garros en route to that title. It's a matter of Coco kind of organizing her game and getting it together. It was a bit of a shock to learn that she had to shake up with her coaching team. The week before the tournament, you saw her outside on the practice courts, really working, kind of retooling her serve almost. It's going to be a lot on her mind as she goes into her first round matchup. She faces Australia's Aya Tomljanovic. It's tricky, it's like we look at Coco and it's like, can she play while she's really thinking about, changing or adapting her serve at the same time? And it's going to be a lot of pressure, a lot of eyes on her. But, I think she's proven that she doesn't have to be at her best to win matches. I expect her to have a good tournament. And there's also the other, if you want to flip the coin and say there's that new coaching honeymoon that a lot of players seem to go through. We've seen it before. So maybe that'll work in her favor. Maybe if she feels like she's rebuilding her game and she won't be thinking too much about the pressure to perform, and maybe she'll feel like the expectations are lower. But Coco, I think, is going to win many more majors. It's just a matter of fixing some of the elements in her game that are holding her back at times. She's a big match player, though, and I expect her to probably be a threat in this tournament. I wouldn't be that surprised if she won it.
Yeah, and I know we said at the top here, the draw doesn't mean a ton at this point because obviously a lot can happen between now and then, but I think one early nugget to keep an eye on here is that Naomi Osaka's in Coco Gauff's draw as well. And that could be a fourth round match. They both get through their sides of the draw. So that could be fun. How do you feel about Osaka here? It's kind of peaked, went down. Now she's on the way back up.
Yeah, 4-time Grand Slam champion and 2 of those at the U.S. Open. I mean, she took the time off for mental health reasons. She had the child. She came back, and it's really been like a slow burn of a comeback. She hasn't been able to win the big titles or play the type of tennis that she played previously to, before she became a mom. So things are on the uptrend, though. She fired her coach, Patrick Mouratoglou, and hired new coach Tomas Wojciechowski, who was the coach that guided Iga Swiatek to several Grand Slam titles. I think that's a good decision for her, and she showed a lot better play in Montreal a couple of weeks ago, reached the final, didn't have a great appearance in the final, but I feel like she's ready to play her best tennis. Could be a factor in this tournament. I think you're right, Mike. I think that could be a potential 4th-round matchup with Coco Gauff, and if that happens, that would be a significant uptick for Osaka in her form because she hasn't performed well at the slams really in the last 2 years. We've just been waiting for it to happen. And I think New York is probably the place she loves to play the most. So I wouldn't be that surprised if she plays some good tennis.
Yeah, I mean, the organizer loved that to have Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka on Ash on Labor Day. That would be fantastic for them.
Yeah, you're looking ahead. I mean, they had that magical moment when Coco was just a 15-year-old where they had that emotional on-court moment where Osaka was kind to Gauff, who was in tears at the time, and I don't think we've ever forgotten that. That was a really human moment, one of the special U.S. Opens. I think it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And that's those are 2 phenomenal players, that women of color that are just iconic superstars, and topping the Forbes list with money made from endorsements. They're huge stars. So if that match happens over Labor Day weekend, yeah, I mean, get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, go to the American women as well. Obviously, we talked about Coco already, but a lot of American women in the top 10. Obviously, you mentioned Madison Keys as a 6 seed, Emma Navarro, the 10 seed, Jessica Pegula is the 4. There's a lot of American women here. Outside of Coco, who do you feel like has the best chance of going on a deep run here?
I love it. I mean, Anisimova's game. I think she, reaching a Wimbledon final is no joke. That was, she got double bageled in that final, lost to Iga Swiatek 6-love, 6-love. But I mean, that's something that's happened to a lot of players facing Iga Swiatek. So no shame in that. She actually handled it really well. I think she's a potential Grand Slam winner, and it's just gotten better and better over the years, and still very young. There's just a lot of depth with the American women. I mean, American women and American men's tennis, I think if you combine them and look at them as a whole, it hasn't been in a place like this in maybe 25 years. There's just so many threats across the board. And let's not forget, Mike, 45-year-old Venus Williams is in this draw. Who knows what to expect from her? She's facing last year's semifinalist Karolina Mukova in the first round. So, I mean, we definitely running the gamut from young to old among the American women.
I'm glad you brought Venus up here. I know some people online are saying, like, what's the point? Like, she's has no chance to go in this tournament. To me, like, she's 45 years old. How much she's getting into the sport? She still wants to play. Like, give her a ticket to the draw. She's done so much for the sport.
Absolutely. She's Serena's big sister, 7-time major champion, 5 at Wimbledon, 2 at the U.S. Open. I think it's amazing that she still wants to play and go out there and prove herself. And, it's tough for her. You can see that the body's not what it used to be, and she struggles. But there are moments where there's like this classic Venus Williams tennis. And I think she's earned a chance to compete. And I don't think the U.S. Open was going to give her a wild card if she just came out cold and said, I wanted to play. She's played several tournaments. She won a match on tour a couple of weeks ago, beating another American, Peyton Stearns, in Washington, D.C. I think she earned that wild card. And geez, I'm excited to see what she can do. I'm pretty confident she's going to lose. It's a tough draw facing Mukova first round. But you just never know if her body's right, and she's got that legendary serve, legendary power. She can still blitz opponents.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would want for Venus is, like, for them not do what they did a few years ago, where they just throw her on Ash because she's Venus and, like, put her in, like, basically the biggest stage and, like, have a chance where she could get, like, wiped off the court. Like, I would prefer, like, if they put her on, like, Armstrong or something, so it's, like, not as big a stage, but still respect Venus's legacy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Any of the top 3 or 4 show courts would be fine. But yeah, Armstrong seems like a good call. I think you might be able to get some work working for the USTA, Mike.
Well, you never know. I always open to opportunities here, but I'll throw out.
Maybe just a couple of weeks a year you can help out.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, like, last thing here, like, sleepers on both sides, not necessarily to win, but, like, who do you think we're not talking about that we could be sitting here, like, at this point, like, on later and say, oh, they're still in the tournament? Like, who are some sleepers you have your eye on that could, like, get to that second week and surprise us?
I feel like some of the Americans, I don't know if they'd be sleepers, but I feel like Francis is my sleeper. I've been talking about him in this podcast. A lot of people think he hasn't had a great year and whatnot, and it's true. He hasn't performed up to expectations. He hasn't won a title. I feel like he's the guy that can break through and do some serious damage in this tournament and potentially get to another semi or another final and sort of take over the narrative again. On the men's side, that's something I'm thinking. There's also a young player named Jakub Mensik who I'm looking at, who's very talented, won his first Masters title in Miami. He's definitely an up-and-comer. It might not quite be his time to shine, but he's one of those young guys who you can see surprise. And there's a young Canadian by the name of Gabriel Diallo also, who's got a powerful game, could make some moves at this tournament. I think it'd be his second main draw appearance here. So those guys I'm kind of looking at. On the women's side, I'm really curious to see how Canada's Victoria Mboko can perform just a couple weeks after winning her biggest title at Montreal. I mean, she won that title and took out Osaka in the final. It was just her 7th WTA event, and it was, a really impressive run to the title. She's just 18. She's another one of these players who has just this great athletic game and looks like she could be a future star in the making. There's not a lack of those in the teenage years that we have on the tour. We've got Mira Andreeva, the young Russian, who's already made major semifinals. We've got Alexandria Iala, the young Filipino woman who was a surprising semifinals in Miami. Another one I want to watch. It is really exciting when you see the breakout stars, as we saw with Emma Raducanu in 2021, winning this tournament from qualifying, basically coming out of nowhere to do it. So the blueprint is there. We know it can happen. It's just a matter of who's going to step up and shine under the spotlight.
Yeah, I'm going to also, like, end with this. And sort of, I was looking at the draw a little more, and, like, I know we said that, like, tennis really, like, wants that Alcaraz center final here. I do think the one fly in the ointment here could be, like, looking at Alcaraz's draw, like, if he runs into Daniil Medvedev in the fourth round, and Medvedev's a guy who's won this tournament, who plays better on hard courts, like, you never like sleep on the former champion on this surface here. Like, I feel like that could be a very dangerous spot for Alcaraz in the tournament.
It's tricky, yeah. I mean, Medvedev took out, I was really surprised a couple of years ago when Medvedev took out Alcaraz to get to another final here. Medvedev has had a really difficult time of it lately and just hasn't played up to form, and it's been frustrating for him. I mean, this is a place where he performs better than any other. I mean, he really won over the crowds in New York in the past. He's got the championship. He's got the final against Nadal, which went 5 sets, where he was 2 sets to love down. He made a great match out of it. He's definitely a fan favorite. So yeah, if he can get back to facing Medvedev, that would be a big step for him. And another one of these little nuggets, great like Labor Day weekend potential matches that we could see.
Yeah, and like I know there's a lot going on later at the barbecues. There's a little college football. But like if that match happens, you want to be in front of a TV for that.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need those matches that really captivate the imagination of fans and make them switch off to the college football for just a couple hours.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media. Keep up with your U.S. Open coverage. How can they do that?
Oh, I'll be writing for usopen.org. I'll be writing for tennisnow.com, and they can always find me on Twitter when I got moments. I'll be on social media at @thefanchild.
All right, Chris. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the tennis the next few weeks.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure.